Hello, I'm Sarah from Truth, Lies, Betrayal. Welcome to Horror After Dark. Turn down the lights, keep an open mind, and prepare for tonight's nightmare. Let's begin.
Father Thomas Aldrich had spent 30 years confronting things most people refused to believe existed. In that time, he had performed 19 exorcisms. 19 battles against forces he believed could never truly win. Not once had he questioned his faith. Not once had he walked away. Then he received a call from a forgotten town deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a place called Hollow Creek. What waited for him there would become his 20th exorcism, and his last. Father Thomas Aldrich had spent most of his life listening to stories other people dismissed. For 30 years he had traveled across towns, cities, and forgotten communities investigating reports of possessions, hauntings, and unexplained disturbances. Most cases turned out to be grief, illness, fear, or desperation, wearing a supernatural mask. A few had not. Those were the cases that stayed with him. The call from Hollow Creek arrived on a rainy Tuesday evening. The voice on the phone belonged to a woman named Margaret Voss. She sounded exhausted, terrified, and completely out of options. "My daughter needs help," she said. Father Aldrich had heard those words many times before, but something about the woman's voice unsettled him. Not because of what she said, because of how she said it, as if she already knew help might not be enough. 3 days later, Father Aldrich drove into the Appalachian foothills of West Virginia. The road leading to Hollow Creek wound through endless forests and steep mountainsides. Dense fog drifted between the trees. Small wooden homes appeared occasionally along the road before disappearing back into the wilderness. The town itself was little more than a collection of old buildings gathered around a single church and a general store. Everything felt isolated, cut off, as though the outside world had forgotten it existed. The people seemed equally distant. As Father Aldrich drove through town, several residents stopped what they were doing and watched him pass. None smiled, none waved, some even turned away. It was the kind of reception that made visitors feel unwelcome before they ever stepped out of their vehicles. The Voss family home stood several miles outside town. It was an aging farmhouse, surrounded by forest. The sky had darkened by the time Father Aldrich arrived. Margaret Voss met him at the front door. She looked exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. Her hands trembled as she greeted him. Inside the house, the atmosphere felt heavy, not supernatural, just strained. The kind of tension that develops when people have been living in fear for too long. Margaret led him into the kitchen. Her husband Daniel sat at the table. Neither parent looked as though they had slept much recently. For several minutes they explained what had been happening. It had started 2 months earlier. Their 16-year-old daughter Ellie had begun waking in the middle of the night, speaking words nobody understood. At first they assumed she was sleep-talking. Then the language changed. Sometimes it sounded ancient, sometimes foreign, sometimes neither. Recordings taken on their phones failed to match any known language experts could identify. The behavior grew stranger. Ellie described events she could not possibly know. She spoke about people who had lived in Hollow Creek centuries earlier. She mentioned names that appeared in old cemetery records, places that no longer existed, details she had never been taught. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. Psychologists offered explanations. Medication did nothing. Therapy changed nothing. The incidents only became worse. Then came the injuries. Cuts appeared on her arms. Bruises formed overnight. One morning, she woke with deep scratches running across her back. No explanation ever made sense. Father Aldrich listened carefully. Everything sounded familiar, not because it confirmed possession, because every serious case began exactly the same way. Fear, confusion, desperation. Facts came later. Eventually, he asked to meet Ellie. The room fell silent. Margaret looked toward the staircase. Daniel lowered his eyes. Neither parent seemed eager to answer. That hesitation concerned Father Aldrich more than anything he had heard so far. Finally, Margaret nodded. "She's upstairs." The second-floor hallway felt unusually cold. Not freezing, just colder than it should have been. At the end of the hall stood a closed bedroom door. Margaret stopped several feet away. "I don't go inside alone anymore." The statement hung in the air. Father Aldrich approached the door, then knocked gently. No response. He knocked again. This time, a voice answered, "Come in." The voice belonged to a teenage girl, but something about it felt wrong. Too calm, too deliberate. Father Aldrich opened the door. Ellie Voss sat on the edge of her bed. At first glance, she appeared completely normal. No violent movements, no dramatic behavior, no obvious signs of distress. She simply watched him enter. The girl was pale, tired, but otherwise ordinary. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Ellie smiled, a small smile, polite, almost welcoming. "Father Aldrich." The priest froze. His parents had never introduced him, not by name. Yet somehow she already knew who he was. Perhaps she had overheard them downstairs. Perhaps. Still, the moment bothered him. He introduced himself anyway. Ellie nodded. "I know." Again that smile. Again that certainty. Father Aldrich sat nearby and began asking questions. At first her answers seemed normal. Then things changed. Without warning, Ellie began describing events from Hollow Creek's history. A church fire that had occurred nearly a century earlier. Families who had disappeared. Land disputes. Burials. Names. Dates. Details. The information flowed effortlessly, as though she were recalling memories rather than learning facts. Father Aldrich listened in silence. Eventually he asked where she had heard these stories. The smile disappeared. For the first time, her expression changed. "He tells me." The room seemed quieter. "Who tells you?" Father Aldrich asked. Ellie stared toward the bedroom window, toward the dark forest beyond. Then she spoke 4 words. A sentence so simple it should not have frightened him, yet somehow it did. "The one below Hollow Creek." For several seconds neither spoke. A cold sensation settled in Father's stomach, not because he believed her, because she sounded as though she believed herself. Completely. Outside, wind moved through the trees. The house creaked softly, and for the first time since arriving in Hollow Creek, Father Thomas Aldrich began to suspect this case might be different from every other case he had ever investigated. That night, Father Aldrich barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Ellie's voice repeating the same words. "The one below Hollow Creek." The phrase sounded less like a description and more like a title. By sunrise, he was already inside the archives beneath Hollow Creek Church. Dust-covered shelves lined the basement walls. Most of the records were ordinary. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, burial records, nothing unusual. But after several hours of searching, Aldrich noticed something disturbing. Entire sections of church history were missing. Pages had been deliberately removed. Dates erased. Names scratched out. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide something. The deeper he searched, the more often one word appeared in handwritten notes left by former priests. A word that had been crossed out repeatedly. Hollowman. No explanation accompanied it. No description. Just the name. And every time it appeared, it had been violently scratched through, as though the writer regretted recording it. By afternoon, Father Aldrich visited the town records office. The building was small and poorly maintained. An elderly clerk reluctantly allowed him access to old property records. What he found raised even more questions. Nearly 150 years earlier, a large section of land beneath Hollow Creek had been seized by the church. The reason had never been documented. No legal explanation. No public notice. Nothing. It was as if the transaction itself had been hidden. Even stranger, old maps showed structures that no longer existed. One drawing depicted a stone building standing exactly where the modern church now sat. Beneath it, a handwritten note read, "Entrance sealed. Never reopen." No further explanation followed. That evening, Father Aldrich returned to the Voss farmhouse carrying copies of everything he had found. Margaret met him at the door. She looked worse than before, exhausted, terrified, defeated. "Something happened today," she whispered. Without waiting for an explanation, Aldrich followed her upstairs. Ellie's bedroom door stood open. Inside, the 16-year-old girl sat cross-legged on the floor. Sheets of paper surrounded her. At first glance, they looked like ordinary drawings. Then Aldrich picked one up. The page was covered in strange symbols, dozens of them, perfectly repeated. The lines were precise, intentional, as if copied from somewhere. "Did you draw these?" he asked. Ellie nodded. "I see them every night." Father Aldrich studied the symbols carefully. He had never seen them before, yet something about them felt familiar, disturbingly familiar. Ellie looked up. "He wants you to find the door." The statement sent a chill through the room. "What door?" For a moment, Ellie seemed confused. Then her expression changed. The same unsettling calm he had witnessed before returned. "The one your family closed." The room became silent. Aldrich stared at her. His family? Again? How could she possibly know anything about his family history? He had spent decades avoiding questions about his ancestry because there had never been answers. Most records were lost. Most relatives were dead. Yet somehow, this entity seemed to know more about the Aldrich family than he did. That night, Father Aldrich compared Ellie's drawings against photographs he had taken inside the church archives. His blood ran cold. The symbols matched markings carved into old foundation stones beneath Hollow Creek Church. Exactly. Every line, every curve, every detail, whatever Ellie was seeing, it was connected to something physically buried beneath the town. The next morning, he called a Vatican archivist he trusted, an elderly historian named Father Benedict. After reviewing the photographs, Benedict became unusually quiet. Finally, he spoke. "Where did you find those?" "Hollow Creek." The silence that followed lasted several seconds. When Benedict spoke again, his voice sounded different, concerned. "There were stories about that place." "What kind of stories?" "Ones the church stopped discussing a long time ago." According to forgotten reports, multiple priests had investigated Hollow Creek throughout the 19th century. Most left quickly. A few refused to speak about what they found. One disappeared completely. Another suffered a complete psychological collapse. The final surviving report contained only a single sentence. "Do not dig beneath the church. Nothing more." No explanation, no context, just a warning. By late afternoon, Father Aldrich had made his decision. He was going below the church, alone. The building sat on a hill overlooking the town. Dark clouds gathered overhead as he entered. Inside, everything appeared normal. Pews, candles, religious icons, the same peaceful atmosphere churches often carried. But beneath the floorboards, something else waited. Using an old maintenance entrance hidden behind storage rooms, Aldrich descended into the foundation level. The deeper he went, the older the structure became. Modern concrete gave way to stone, then rough-cut rock. Eventually he reached a narrow tunnel. His flashlight illuminated walls covered with strange carvings. The same symbols Ellie had drawn. Hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. The further he walked, the more oppressive the air felt, almost heavy, as though the tunnel itself didn't want him there. Finally, the passage opened into a large underground chamber, and there, he saw it, a massive iron door built directly into the stone. The surface was covered with ancient markings, but it wasn't the symbols that captured his attention. It was the names. Dozens, hundreds, names carved into the surrounding walls. Many belonged to townspeople buried in Hollow Creek Cemetery. Others matched names Ellie had spoken during her episodes. Then Aldrich's flashlight stopped moving. His heart nearly stopped with it. Carved into the stone were several names he recognized, not because he had seen them in records, because they were his. Aldrich, again, and again, and again. Generations of them. His family had been here before, many times. Long before he was born, long before he became a priest, the realization shattered everything he thought he understood. This wasn't random. It never had been. Somehow the Aldrich family had always been connected to Hollow Creek, connected to whatever lay behind that door. Then he heard it. A faint whisper, so quiet he almost missed it. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. The walls, the floor, the darkness itself. Aldrich turned slowly. The whisper grew louder. One voice became two. Two became 10. 10 became hundreds. An impossible chorus of overlapping voices filled the chamber. His flashlight shook violently in his hand. The temperature dropped. His breath became visible. And then, every voice suddenly stopped. Complete silence. For one terrifying moment, the entire chamber stood motionless, waiting, listening. Then a single voice emerged from the darkness. Ancient, patient, and unmistakably clear. "You finally came back." Father Aldrich froze. Every instinct told him to run, but another realization struck him at the same moment. The entity had never wanted Ellie, never wanted possession, never wanted destruction. It had used Ellie as a message, a summons, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. Everything that had happened in Hollow Creek, the disappearances, the buried records, the missing pages, the sealed tunnel, the forgotten graves, all of it pointed toward the same truth. This was never Ellie's story. It was his. And standing beneath Hollow Creek Church, staring at the ancient door hidden beneath generations of lies, Father Thomas Aldrich finally understood something terrifying. His 20th exorcism had never truly begun, and whatever waited beyond that door had been waiting for him far longer than he could imagine.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. The story may be over, but some nightmares never truly end. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for more terrifying stories here on Horror After Dark. And remember, sometimes the things that scare us most aren't hiding in the dark. They're already inside the house. Good night, and sleep carefully.